I'm happy to be here. One of the biggest changes since we last spoke in the summer of 2017 is that I no longer live in New York City. I live in Atlanta now, and that is important to this conversation for a variety of reasons. One, after you quit a job that, financially takes care of you in a very expensive city like New York, you start to think about where else could you make a life and make a living that is less expensive. And for me, it was Atlanta. Atlanta was a natural choice just because I have some family down here. And so it wasn't, and it's still relatively close to New York where I can go back and forth and visit family in New York. So I moved to Atlanta for financial reasons solely. It wasn't because I was in love with the city or, I could be anywhere, but it was like, okay, you want to go to some place where you have a little bit of connection, it's relatively cheaper, and then you can start to think about, okay, how do I expand my business? How do I, get on this journey of wealth creation? So I'm in Atlanta now.
Right.
Now, as far as my...
Wait, but so I want to talk. Let's expand on that a little bit because because that I think that's great and great. It's great insight to kind of starting the journey. But then I have a question. So with that being said, someone would say, well, if I'm starting out as an entrepreneur, I'm doing that. There's a cost to moving and uprooting, one, right?
Yeah.
There's an expense to that.
Yep.
And then secondly, there's an expense to that. But secondly, what about in terms of depending on what I'm doing and my entrepreneurial endeavors, does that particular area or where I'm going support that of the vision?
So it was two things. Atlanta was actually good for a bunch of reasons. One, I can make art anywhere. I initially wanted to just sell all my stuff and move out of the country, but and that would have been fine, and my money would have lasted longer had I gone to Mexico or Southeast Asia. But when you think about making art and having to ship it to collectors, my collector base is mainly in the United States, so it was sort of I don't want to have to think about trying to get art back to the States. I know people have done it. I just didn't want to have to think about it. Secondly, I primarily work on paper. So living in places like Bali or Thailand, where it's cheap and beautiful, doesn't necessarily work for my art practice because it's very moist. And then I would have to think about, well, how do I store my work so that it doesn't get destroyed in between? So there's logistics. So I was just okay, I got to stay in the States. And then secondly, I knew that even though at the time when I moved, I was very reluctant to do public health consulting. I mean, this is my training. I had done it for over a decade. I know I can easily monetize those skills, but I was reluctant at first. But I said to myself, your feelings might change, so you want to go to a city where you can there's both an art community and support in that regard, but then there's also a big public health community where you can also make money that way. And Atlanta is that place. It's a very good place to do public health work. In fact, if I wanted to go back and get a job, I can go get a job making just as much as I was making in New York City, if not more. So I knew that awesome. If I'm going to be somewhere, it needed to be a place where it's I can easily get a public health gig. At the same time, there's arts things happening. At the same time, it's still very close to New York, so I can get back and forth relatively cheaply. So you do need to kind of think about what's the best place for you to be able to flex and flow with all of the many things that you will need to do in order to build your business, build your practice, that kind of thing. And as far as the move, I decided to move to Atlanta right at the point where I knew my savings were about to run out. So quit my job for that first year out. I was living on my savings. And then when I made the decision, I literally looked at my bank account and I was like, I got $15,000. I did the math for what it would cost to move all my stuff and then what it would cost to get an apartment and then be able to cover myself for 4 months. And it was exactly $15,000. And I was like, if I don't go now, it was. And I've told other people the story. Like, if I didn't make that decision at that moment, I would have stayed in New York, continuing to pay almost $2,000 in rent, and I just wouldn't have had enough to move. So it was like, no, it's now. And then along with that, back to your original comment about just doing this as a single person, I was also in a 10-year relationship that was at the 10-year mark around that time, and that also ended when I left New York. So it was like, okay, this relationship is not going in the direction that I want it to go in. Even though it's painful to walk away from it, it's just what I have to do, because you get to a point where you're like, you only get one life and you can't be, just playing around with it. You have to make the decisions that are going to move you in the direction of the kind of life that you want. And even though relationships are tricky, because letting go of something that is good, you're like, should I do this? But when you're sort of aiming for great, you just move differently. And I was just like, I want to have great love. I want to have great wealth. I want to have a great art practice. I want to have, businesses that are in service to other humans. And I have to go through this route. And I have to cut off some things, and I have to downsize, and I have to, when you're clear on where you want to go, the decisions that you need to make are just much easier. So that's what happened. That's beautiful. So that's what happened. That's how I got here, and the money part of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like the impetus. Well, what's beautiful is there's so much beauty in that, because also what I'm hearing is that how the universe aligns when you were clear, right? Like, so the fact that you looked at your account and it was like $15,000 exact. And not that anyone wants anyone's relationship to end, but right at the end of that was the start of something else. It's like, so I made a decision, and all these things began to fall into place, or align, if you will. So it's funny, because when you and I talked before, we were talking about consistency, right, and just getting started. And the first thing was making the decision and the choice making the choice. And once soon as you made the choice, it's like the parting of the seas, if you will, everything began to kind of line up. Yeah. So that
I believe
that was touching.
Yep.
So you're now in Atlanta, and it's been, how long has it been now? 2 years?
It will be 2 years on February 1st. I can't believe it.
Awesome.
Time just goes by so fast.
It really does. It really does. So you're in Atlanta. It has everything as for now that you could want and desire. Because you talked about the fact that it has the public health community, and you're able to do your artwork and all of that stuff. So what is a typical day like for Christa? Like, what does that look like for Christa, the entrepreneur artist?
Well, so the good thing about the way that I've set up my life is it's a lot of variety. So every day is pretty much different, but still every day is exactly whatever I decide it's going to be. So I still do some public health consulting. In fact, I actually have a company now called the Black Print Institute, and so I had to formalize it because, again, I had so much resistance around it. But, after a lot of prayer and meditation, it was sort of like you don't want to cut off your streams of income if you're trying to build wealth. Like, you just don't, especially when you're like, yeah, sure, I would love to just sell my art and live off of that, but the reality is that is just not where I am right now. It doesn't mean I'm not going to get there, but I do have all of these great opportunities to make quite a bit of money, still doing public health work, but doing it from my couch and only doing it a few hours a week, and still doing really, really well. I make more money on my couch in Atlanta than I did when I was going to work every day for 10 hours a day. And not only that, now that I have a company, I can invite other people to work with me and to help me complete these projects. So I don't even have to do all the work. I get a lot of help, and I get to pay other smart people to help me. And while they're working, I'm off in my studio making art. So my days vary. So I'll take it by quarter because each quarter has a theme. So what's happening right now in the first and second quarter of the year is usually when I do my public health work. That's when things get really ramped up, and public health is more part of my weeks than in the other two quarters. And that's only because of the way the fiscal year works. So a lot of my contracting work is contracts from city governments and other nonprofits, et cetera, and everybody is sort of trying to spin down budgets before June. That is sort of what is happening. So first and second quarter is mostly public health work, and then me just sort of working in my studio. So I guess the time split is probably I may spend 10 to 15 hours a week on public health work, and then the rest of the time is me trying to work on my art business and my art practice kind of thing. And then you get to the third and fourth quarter of the year, and it's just mostly art, because that's the art season. Shows are happening, Art Basel prep is happening, and that sort of thing. So, and then the holiday season, which is when I sell quite a bit of work. So I split the year in that way, and then I also make it a point to take long breaks. So the month of March, I'll be out of the country. The month of August, I'll be out of the country. So then I take these breaks where I can travel and do whatever I want. So that is, and then a typical day is just me getting up, making coffee, deciding, am I going to the studio to do some work, which I have a beautiful studio now that's outside of my home, which probably wouldn't have happened if I was in New York, because if I had to pay for the studio space that I have now, it would easily cost $1,600, $1,700. And I would probably have to, if I wanted to have it at the rate that I have it now, which is $600, I would probably have to share it with two other people. And it's a beautiful studio in a church, and it's a bunch of artists in the building. It's just a blessing that just happened. Again, right when I made the decision that I'm going to do this, within 3 or 4 days, a studio became available, and it's in a church, which has always been a dream of mine to work in a church. And then I signed the lease, and then I started working there. So I tend to be in the studio at least 5 to 6 days a week for anywhere from a couple hours to 5 hours, 6 hours, that kind of thing. And then as far as my living, I want to take a pause for a minute, because I want to acknowledge a couple of things. First of all, I have real tears of my heart. I'm so overjoyed with happiness for you. So beautiful to be able to experience. And so I know you're sharing it out, but I think sometimes it's important to take a moment to pause, right, and really just kind of reflect on all that you just shared. All that you have just accomplished, and going back and being able to say that you're able to you've been able to make more money sitting on your couch than you did working at your job, because that was one of the goals. While the goal was to be able to create space to be creative and do your art, it was also to create that generational wealth. And you're on your way, because you're earning, and you've already kind of exceeded in terms of the earning potential. So I think that that's really, really beautiful for people to be able to hear what is truly, truly possible. That is. So kudos to you. That's awesome. That's everything, honey. That's a blessing. And I think people get a little nervous because I do. There are times, it's getting better every year, where in the beginning I was just you grow accustomed to getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, and health insurance and all the things that come, good things that come with having a job. But then you have to budget that money in a certain way to really make it work for you. And I wasn't doing what I realize now, I wasn't doing the best with managing my money when I was making it. I'm very clear that I could have been doing things differently. But now that my money comes in very differently, I could go 2 months or 3 months without making money, and then at the 3-month mark, I get a check for $60,000, right? So the money comes in differently. So then when it comes in those big chunks, I'm able to think about, okay, how do I make this last for 8 months? How do I pay people? And then one of the biggest things that I was able to accomplish, which I had not been able to accomplish in New York, which is so strange, was I got out of credit card debt last summer. And I was just like, it was $12,800 in credit card debt that I was just carrying around with me. You know, like we get used to our stuff. We get used to our baggage, and we get used to making those payments every month. And I was like, why didn't you, prioritize this when you were working and you had plenty of money, but you just wasn't prioritizing it? And I was able to do that and pay off my credit card debt. And it's so freeing because you're like, oh, I don't have to send $500 to these various credit cards throughout the month. That's money I can now put in my retirement, or, you know, I'm paying down the only other debt I have is my student loan debt. So I'm paying that down and trying to figure out, ways to aggressively pay that because I don't want to carry that around anymore. But it's just, you just get to move differently when so I say all that to say that it took me a while to get used to not having the checks come in every 2 weeks, but now I understand what I need to do when the money does come in, like a big check, and how to be a better steward over my money. And it doesn't matter how much money you have coming. You can have $200 coming in, but if you don't know what you're telling that $200 to do, you're not managing the money well, because in your mind, you're like, it's just $200. I don't need to make a budget. No, you do. You do. You need to know that $20 is going here, $40 is going here, and $140 is going there. So I've just gotten to be very clear about my money, and because I know that I'm in this season from age 40 to 45 where I'm going to be creating incredible amounts of money and wealth, I talk about money all the time.
Put it out there. Yes. Let's not keep it a secret.
No, because it has always been a trigger for me in a bad way, talking about money and feeling like, oh, I should be farther along than I have. I was making all this money for all these years and I wasn't, doing the right things with it. It was just a lot of shame around it. And now that I'm free of all of that, I talk about money all the time, to the point where there's no secret. There's nothing you can ask me about, well, how much money did you make this week? How much money did you make? I'm going to tell you, I don't care. It's just money. It's just energy.
Right.
And I want to make more. And I don't feel guilty about wanting to make lots and lots of money, mainly because we live in a world where things cost money. And I'm trying to have a house, like a compound for my family. We've never owned any houses, and I'm trying to have that. So I got to make this money because my mother's aging. I have a daughter. It's like I don't want to feel ashamed for being like, no, I want to know how much I'm making and where it's going, and I'm trying to have real estate so that I don't have to work as hard 5-7 years from now. So anyway,
Christa, you was dropping them gems as you always do, and you said so much. And in fact, you touched on a lot of the things that I had questions about already, right? Because one of the things that came up, someone once asked me, and I was like, I want to know, is she making money, right? We talk about starting artists. Is she making money? So I'm glad that you talked about that. But the other thing that you just touched on, which is important, is what Just Bloom is really about, right? It's about being able to say we can plant seeds and start where we are with what we have and kind of move from there. And being able to be free and let go of any, for me, that's what it was about, letting go of the shame or guilt, because I believe that I should have been further along than what I currently am. And I think that that's really key and important, because I think when we hold on to that shame or guilt, it actually prevents us from being able to move forward, to be able to create, to be able to do things, because we're so stuck in the past of it, or where we think we should be, and it's hard for us to be able to kind of see the forest from the trees, if you will. So I think that that's really important, to be able to say, to begin to let go of the shame. But part of that, I think, is also saying where you are now, because like you said, for you, you're able to talk about money freely. You have more of it. You're able to share it. But I think that even if you, like you said, you have the $200, that you get to say, listen, I have $200, but my expenses is this, and start to talk to people about it and see how you can get support around, one, increasing that, being able to budget what you have. But if we don't share it or talk about it, we continue to keep ourselves in the bondage around it. So share.
And I think, I share, especially with like all of my public health money, thank God, it comes in because of my networks and people that I've worked with previously. So people will hit me up like, oh, do you have time for this? Like last week, somebody who used to work with me hit me up and was like, and this is out of the blue, I don't actively look for public health money, but I do have it, generally on my mind and heart, like, okay, I want to bring in this amount of money this quarter. Let's see what happens. Like, I do believe God just kind of opens the door. And she just sends me a text like, do you have time to do this project real quick, and I'll give you $5,000? And I'm like, yes, I can do that. And it's not going to take me that much time. Like, it's only a week's worth of work. It's like 30 hours or whatever. And I was like, sure, girl. Like, so again, stuff like that happens all the time. And I'm like, all right, just there's help out there. So all of my friends and all of my networks, they know that I'm here on my couch. These are my skills, and people will contact me, and people are advocating for me even now in rooms that I'm not in, and that has everything to do with how you treat people. If you have a history of being kind to people and being supportive to people, you won't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be eating or sleeping anywhere.
Come on now.
There's a little note for folks out there, like, y'all need to be nice. You need to be kind to people, and don't think about, I'm doing this so I can get something later. Just show up for people in whatever ways you can, because that will pay off in dividends. Every single contract I've ever gotten has been because of somebody I worked with, somebody who knew me, who put me in contact with somebody they know. And it's all because they're like, you're going to love Christa. She's so nice, and she's smart, and she'll get the work done. And that is it. That's what that part, because I was going to say that part. Because, yes, the nice, and we get to be nice, and we get to be sweet, we get to be loving, but that part, the part about being you need to be excellent,
get the work done, and excellent in the skills.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm very clear on what I do very well, and I've turned down contracts. I've turned down money because, one, I'm at a place where I don't want to have to, so you don't want to be like thirsty for money. So I've had people say to me, oh, I have this $20,000, $25,000, $40,000, and I'll look at what they want me to do, and something inside of me, and this is where meditation comes in, because you get to learn yourself very quickly, will rise up, and I'll be like, nah, I don't want to do that because it's connected to this, it's in this space, that's not my jam. And I'll say no. I will write a nice little email. I'll talk to them, and I'll say, you know what, I know you really want me to do this. This is not, I don't want to prioritize this right now, but keep me in mind for something else, but this is not it. And I don't have a problem with turning down money because I don't need it to disturb my peace. I know there's more money is going to be coming around the corner, another project that'll have much more peace and ease in it for me, because I can do lots of different types of public health projects, but I only want to do the ones that I can literally do them in my sleep, because it's about peace and ease for me. I'm not looking necessarily for some outrageous challenge with that. I'm just looking to do very good work. I'm looking to operate in my gift. And I'm looking to add value immediately so that I can be done and be on my way back to my studio to make my art, because I'm clear that my purpose and sort of how I want to show up in the world is as this creative, as this artist, but I don't want to shut off this, these other skills that I can use to help other people, these public health skills. So you just got to be clear on what you're trying to do so that you're not running yourself raggedy chasing a check. I don't chase nothing. I don't chase nothing. Some days I'm like, Christa, you need to be more proactive. I was like, no, you need to go meditate. That's what you need to do. You don't need to be chasing anything. I don't even chase art stuff. I don't chase art stuff. I just let it come to me. I showed up at Art Basel 2 years in a row. Those opportunities came to me. I sold out at Basel this past year because the opportunity came to me. Like, I am not chasing checks. I'm not chasing. I don't hustle. I don't chase things. I just mind my business, show up, and I try to do excellent work, staying in my lane. That's what I do.
I love that, Christa. Well, honey, let me just tell you, you done blessed some people 30 times over already just with that. And the essence of just being able to be, because, right, that's what I hear. It's not a lot of doing, even though you actually do work, but the essence of it is who you get to be. And then even when I was talking to Dr. Sunrise the other day on my podcast, and she was saying, when you talked about like kind of your intuition and you turn down things, and she was talking about like a good idea versus that of a God idea. And it sounds like you're tapped into kind of the God ideas versus that of a good idea. Maybe a good idea to get that $20,000, but is it a God idea because does it disturb my peace? Is it work that I'm able to do? Is it going to kind of impede my creativity in other ways? And if that's the case, then I'm a no for it. And I think that's
I'm a no, exactly.
I'm a no for it because I'm a no for that because I'm a yes for this, right? I'm a yes for inner peace. I'm a yes for creativity. I'm a yes for my freedom. So that's like you blessing folks all up and down.
Yes.
So let's go to, because we talked about the public health a lot, and I think that's the part that, as you mentioned, is being able to, you're earning clearly abundantly from that. And I want to talk about the art, the creativity of art. When I was looking at your artwork, well, one, I want to tell folks that I am happy to say that I own a piece of Christa David's art, and I'd love, and I know that one day God is going to bless me with the ability to earn, to have more of it in my home because it's beautiful. I particularly, for me, favor that of the collages. I love the collages. They are like my favorite. And I think just for me that there's this, and you mentioned this before, there's a social justice aspect that you really believe in, but I feel like it shows up in your collage work. So with this, so talk to me about that, because I've been seeing a couple of your work as of late. It has like the American flags on it, and it has like our beautiful black melanin people on it, and people can infer whatever stories that they want to infer from it. But like, what's the inspiration behind the collages? What is that? How does it tie into social justice? Talk to us about your art practice, particularly collages, and then anything else you want to add.
So the collage work is, the way that I describe my art practice, it has multiple components, collage work, painting, etc. But the collage work really will kind of give you a sense of what I'm thinking, because it's a very thinking process for me. I'm usually thinking about Black people because I love us so much, and that's always going to be my point of reference, because, and I'm making my work for Black and brown people, mainly because I am. That's just subject of my attention. I'm not making it to try to convince non-Black and brown people of our humanity in any way. I'm not trying to tell them to see us in a certain, none of that. I am making my art to speak to other people who look like me and who take up space and create space in the ways that I do. And as far as the social justice piece, this is where my public health training and my living as a Black woman in America sort of kind of comes together. Social justice is core to the public health practice. Like, it is foundational to the way that we go about doing our work and the why of us doing our work. Equity is the goal. So, the vision is to live in a world where everybody gets a chance, regardless of skin color, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, etc. Like, we all get a chance, and everything that we need is available to us in an equitable way, not necessarily in an equal way. Equity and equality are two different things. But for the folks who are clearly marginalized and disadvantaged, these are the ones that we should lift up and support even more, so that we can have a society where everybody gets to thrive. So I think about those things when I'm making my artwork, and I center Black and brown bodies because it is amazing to me when I think about all of the challenges that we have to face just by being in the skin that we're in, how every single thing comes against us. And we're in spite of that, we still manage to tap into joy and tap into love and tap into our breath. And like just we're still able to survive and thrive even in very challenging circumstances. And I'm not saying that our everyday lived experience as Black and brown people is terrible and horrible. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying it in more of in a macro way where we are clearly disadvantaged and in the sense and marginalized in the sense that some people have wielded power in ways that have kept us out of opportunities, out of creating generational wealth, out of having optimal health, and all those things. Just generally, as a body of people, and I try to make art where I'm being very, very. I'm trying to lift up this idea of look at this. So some of my latest work, you'll see a little Black girl in the middle of these images, or other Black women, and I try to center them right in the middle of the page, just to sort of make this point of like, look at this beautiful Black child. Look how she is standing completely contained, completely strong, completely beautiful, completely tender. I need you to consider the fact that she stands in the midst of, and I use white space a lot in my collages to kind of, it's very intentional to kind of make this point of like, we're hemmed in on different sides around all of this sort of white privilege and power and that kind of thing. But yet here we are, the center of, here we are standing despite all of the things that tend to have us hemmed up. So it's just really important to me to kind of just show and even though I don't like the word resilience, but to show that kind of strength and tenderness and softness and love on the page. And I will always center Black and brown folks in my work. It's just we are the ones that fascinate me. Like it's just I'm so fascinated by our power and our strength and our beauty and our ability to tap into joy in spite of a lot of pain and challenge. So that's the collage work. And a lot of it's rooted in history and just my training in history and study and things like that. And I try to be very subtle about how I put these images together, because I do think you leave space for the viewer to have their own experience. And it's always so wonderful to me when I hear people describe my work. I think the latest thing that I've latched on to, a couple people have described it as such, which I think is just incredibly humbling. And sometimes I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. A couple people have described it as visual poetry, which I'm like, that is like the highest compliment to me right now. I was like, that would be accurate. That's right. Because it's like it's like pieces of this story, and it's like I read a lot of poetry, and I also write poetry, but it's about this feeling and this mood when you just kind of sit with the work, and it's saying a lot of things, but it's also very specific to the Black experience in America. So anyway, that's my collage work, and I'm just grateful that people have been responding to it in a way, one, to share their opinions about it, to share it, and then also to bring it into their homes. I'm always amazed when people like give me money for something I made with my hands. I'm like, what? And then the ones who come back and buy other things, I'm like, oh my God. It's such a blessing, and I'm not in it for the money, because I know people want to know how much money I make off of my art. Last year I'm just now getting my stuff together for my accountant. It was between like $18 It was between $15,000 and $18,000. So it's not a lot of money. But it's every year. What I care about is every year that number goes up, and that tells me that there's this shift in both in the way that I'm putting out my work and two, in the way people are responding to it. And as long as that number keeps going up, I know I'm on the right track to get to a point where my art covers my life. Even though I'm still not sure I want my art to cover my life, but it is getting better and better, and it does make me feel better, or not feel better. It does make me. It makes me feel good that people want to bring this work into to their homes, and they want their children to grow up with images of black and brown children around. And not all of my collectors are black and brown. A lot of them are white. And even that, I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. I mean, that wasn't necessarily my intent, but even that's beautiful. People who want to be like, no, like, I want to have a representation of all sorts of people in my home, in my art.
Right.
So that's pretty much what I've made for last year, but I feel really good about that. And I just know it's only going to get better this year.
Are you focusing more on the collages now versus the painting, or is
painting? So that's the tricky part. I'm always everybody responds to the collages, and I have a theory as to why. I think especially figurative collages where you see people that look like you, or you just see people that you can identify, objects that you can identify, it feels more comfortable. So I love that people are gravitating towards the collage. I love making them. I want to make more of them. I want to make them larger. I want to, so I love that. But I also love my painting practice, and it's okay if people don't gravitate towards that more. I'm okay with it. That's the wonderful thing about my art practice, is that I am clear that my art practice is one thing and my art business is another thing. So for business, collage is good for business, right? But for my art practice and for my own sort of sanity and soul work and care, I'm going to keep making these paintings because they make me feel like my painting practice is all about how I feel. So if they're just for me, it's just for me, because, again, my art practice is for me. The art business is for everybody else. So I'm just very clear.
Let's pause for a moment, because I think that's worthy of a pause. Yeah. My art practice is for me, but my art business is for everyone else. It's so beautiful that you separated the two out, right?
That's
important, and I think it's important for people to hear that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because I think, because a lot of what I've learned in talking to a lot of artists, we're very creative and right-brained, but then when it comes to the business part, most creatives don't know what business is about. And I'm not saying that I know a lot about it, but I know enough to educate myself about, product market fit, and what do you look at your demand, and supply and demand, and the marketing of it, and the telling of the story of it, and that kind of thing. I feel like, because of my training, I'm equal parts right brain and left brain. I love thinking about, how do you come up with a plan and a strategy to move this work? How do you pitch this person and reach out to that person and brand with that, co-brand with that person, and that kind of. So the business piece of it is very, you need to know your numbers. You need to be tracking your sales. You need to know what's doing well and what's not, and then be okay with letting things go. So, I sell these lapel pins. I love my little lapel pins, but the numbers tell me that it's the gold crowns that are doing the best. So I'm about to drop all the other stuff, because I just don't. You don't want to keep doing. You don't want to do a variety of things when only one thing is working.
That's right.
One big thing I changed in my business this past quarter, which was great, was I no longer send prints straight from my studio. I've set up a drop shipping situation where the prints come straight from the printer. Well, that's important because that saves me time with packaging up prints, when what I really want to move is the original art, because that's a higher price point, So it's a different kind of care that needs to be taken when I'm selling the original artwork, because people are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars versus a print, which I'm grateful that people buy prints for $40, but you also have to be mindful of the energy, the time. Like, if I'm spending the same amount of time to package up a print for $40 versus something for $600, then I'm going to get burnt out because I'm only one person. So I had to, like, automate some things in my business in order to be able to move that work faster. Like, I can move the work from the printer a lot faster than I can from my studio. So you just need to be clear on the business side of it, and then I still experiment in my studio. Like, I'm experimenting with sculpture, or I'm experimenting with, like, adding circuits to my collage. Like, y'all don't need to know about that because that's not, like, something I'm trying to sell, but it's good for my soul. Like, my art practice is for me to sort out myself and for me to heal myself and learn about what are the things that I'm curious about, the things that fascinate me. But not everything gets shared on Instagram. Not everything gets shared on the website. So, and I think every artist needs to know, like, you have to have something that is just for you, because what's going to happen is I get a lot of demand for the collage work. And the one part, like, in the beginning, I was like, well, this is making me sad because collage was something that I just started doing back in 2016. It hasn't been, like, what I've been doing for most of my art making years. And then I was like, and then I could get caught up in that, and I could have thrown my painting practice or my photography practice to the side. But I was like, no, girl, you keep doing that for you, and you keep because it's helping you. Like, it's informing the collage work. You still do the collage work, but you still get to, like, get, you know, messy with paint. I got several paintings going in the studio right now, and I'm happy with them. I'm happy with them. So, yeah, you just got to know what you're in it for and, like, keep things separate so you're not, and then this is a very important point. Yep. For anybody who's selling anything, especially artists, like, you're going to see a demand for certain things. You do not want that you don't want to start feeding the machine, especially if you're like, that thing that people want is not what I really want to give them. So you got to have a fine balance between, you know, yes, I want to make money and I want to continue to do my work and continue to have a sustainable business, but at the same time, you will know if you are doing things that you're just doing to feed the machine. I don't want to feed the machine. That's why I keep the public health stuff going, because if I'm making art and that no one's buying, I do not care. Like, at this point in my life, I would have cared 2 years ago, but now that I'm clear on now that I'm clear on what money does and how it circulates and how I can attract it, I'm not gonna be sitting here stressing if my art is not selling, because I'm making money in these other ways, and I want to continue because I just don't want to feel like I'm just doing stuff just to sell something. Like, that is a terrible feeling. It's like going to a job you don't want to go to.
So I was going to say, it'd be equivalent to working again, and it's like that would defeat the intent of the goal.
Exactly.
You shared so much, right? And so kind of like thinking about one, first of all, wow, mind blown. So many, like, kind of light years ahead of, I don't know what I imagine or thought the conversation would be, but I know you, right? And so just to really hear how you've embraced this kind of the money aspect of it, and this kind of like the manifestation, and I don't work for it, comes to me because I am being, and the work, you know, how I put myself out there and trusting the universe and all that's beautiful. And also, I just want to kind of highlight the fact that you are creating what you had said that you wanted to create so long ago, which is this multiple stream of income, because I think it's important that while people may want to kind of leave their jobs, does it really make sense to give up that income that could actually support and serve as, support you with the financial aspect of feeding your business if you have the space to be able to do the things that you want to do. Now, it's one thing if you don't have that space because it's like taking up all of your time, but if you do, then you need to ask yourself, should I probably continue to have
don't quit your job. Like, I quit my job because it was toxic, it was stressful. I was in this position where it was like it was taking over my whole life. I won't tell people to quit their job, not if you're like, oh, no, I go to work 8 to 4. These people don't stress me out after work. I can go and you have kids. Your kids are grown. Like, they're self-sufficient, right? I know you still have your baby at home, but, like, they're self-sufficient. So, like, when you get off of work, you can do whatever you want to do. And then you have your weekends and stuff like that. So, no, I would not tell people to give up their jobs. One, if you haven't demonstrated that your other side business or whatever is actually making money, do not give up your job. Two, like, you want to you want to see your job as like your investor into your other things.
That's right.
So no, I'm not out here telling people to quit jobs. No,
I know that's right. And also the thing that you said, because I wanted to ask you this, but you said it, but I also want to bring it back to folks to let them be able to hear that, because you talked about the intergenerational aspect of it and obviously creating multiple streams of income, and it sounds like you're doing that. It sounds like you are doing that. But also what I was curious about, and you answered, was that of kind of this balance, because sometimes the belief that people have is that you exchange kind of one job, if you will, or the stress of one to do something else, and you're like chasing the check. But you've already said that you don't chase checks, so that's not happening for you. And then I was going to ask, like, do you get to go on vacation? Are you constantly trying to, like,
oh my God,
to kill? Like, and now you like, oh, I'm taking a month off. I'm taking a month. I'm going here for a month. I'm like, well, all right.
You know what it is? You know what it is? Yep. So here's the secret to. So when I get a big check, kind of like I did last summer, and I look at the money, I could have like blown that whole money, but I pay myself a salary. I pay myself a $50,000 salary. Now, do I make way more than that? Yes, but I have separate business accounts, and then I have my personal account. So every month I go to the bank. I write myself a check for $3,330. That is what is left over after taxes. And I put that in my personal checking account, and that's how I manage my bills and expenses. And then twice a year I give myself a big bonus in the middle of the year and the end of the year to kind of cover, to get myself back up to what I was making before I quit my job, right? But I only do that after looking at what's in my business accounts, right? So the key is that I live way below my means. Like, I live in the good hood of the west side of Atlanta. People come to Atlanta and they be like, yeah, I'm moving to Midtown, I'm moving to the high rise. No, I live in the hood. My neighbors are nice, but these are like low-income, working-class people, and I feel fine living here in this old house that I'm renting for $850, right? So it's about living below your means, so that you can flex with money. So that's one thing. So even though I may have a big payday, $25,000, $30,000, whatever, I'm still going to pay myself a salary. I'm not dipping into that money, because that money I can look at that money and be like, oh, I have enough money for 8 months or 9 months or whatever the case may be, because I stay on budget, right? And then also with that, yes, I take vacations. Yes, I work. And there are days when I'm like, oh, my gosh, I worked a 10-hour day. But then there are days when I'm like, oh, like yesterday, I didn't even go to work. I decided I was tired, so I'm going to stay home and read or whatever. And then you have things like, okay, I need to go on vacation. So what am I doing? I'm going to Thailand for a whole month in March. Like, I will be off the grid. I will be floating in seas and, like, traveling all throughout Thailand, minding my business for a month. And that's already money that I put aside.
Minding my business because I mind my business.
Exactly. And I'm okay with taking time off, because I'm like, no, you didn't take time off for the holidays. You didn't go home for the holidays. It's like, no, you have to take breaks. And in 2020, I want to take more breaks than I did in 2019. 2018, I took a good amount of breaks. 2019, I didn't take the sufficient breaks. So in 2020, yes, I'm taking 2-month-long vacations out of the country, just walking around, minding my business.
It's like it's all a constant elevation, right, and evolution of your business. Is like the goal to earn more, to sell more art, to be able to build business, to take more time off than I did prior, to be able to have my real estate and other endeavors, and to be able to like create this generational wealth, which is so beautiful. And you are on. I'm hearing you're on the path. Do you experience yourself as on the path of the things that you set out to do? Do you feel like, yes, this is exactly, I'm on my path, on the path to do exactly what I intended on doing when I quit my job, 2, 3 years ago?
So I will say this. I would not, when I quit my job 3 years ago, I did not think that I would be here, like in Atlanta, renting a little old house with a studio that's, 15 minutes away. I thought that I would stay in New York, that me and my ex would have gotten married or something, and I would have moved in with him because he owns this place, and I would have been, making my art in New York. Like I had it in my mind what I thought was going to happen. So it's okay to have a plan, but if you're going to take the leap, any kind of leap of faith, you have to be okay with things turning out. You got to be okay with the plan changing or the plan expanding, and you just have to keep your mind on the outcome. So the goal for me was I want a life where that I have ultimate time freedom, where I can make my art, where I can, and that's it, make my art and then make money for generational wealth building. Those are the only things. How it looks, I had to let go. And when I had to leave New York, it was very hard. Like, I miss New York. But I'm also like, what is the goal? The goal is time freedom. I can do whatever I want with my days, any day of the week. No one is telling me to do anything. 2, I am making money and I am saving it, and I've set up some investment accounts. So I'm doing my investment thing. I'm looking into real estate. Like, okay, so that's working out. 3, I'm making my art. I have a place where I make my art. So you just got to have your goal in mind, and then, yes, you can make a plan, but you have to be okay with that plan changing. As long as it's getting you towards your goal and it's aligned with your values, you should get some values. If you don't have values, my core value is freedom, so I make the decisions based off of that. Does this thing make me feel more free? If it doesn't make me feel more free, I tend to say no. Have I made some decisions where I felt bound up? Yes. Like, I'm in a contract now where I'm like, I'm not renewing that contract because I don't like how it makes me feel. So I think you got to be okay with your plans shifting, and you got to be okay with, I wrote this poem a few months ago, maybe almost a year ago, where it talks about just all of the different things you might have to go through in order to get to your ultimate destination or wherever it is that you want to go. And sometimes it does require you to pare down, and sometimes it requires you to go to unknown places, and sometimes it requires you to go into a season of solitude. And sometimes, it's going to take you out of your comfort zone. Like, I'm in Atlanta, and even though it's a nice place and I know people love it, this is not my comfort zone. Every day is a challenge. I'm grateful and I'm learning things about myself, but I do feel out of my comfort zone. Like, I don't.
What about it? Is that what?
Well, it's just the way that the city is set up, right? So it's like it's a sprawling city, for example. Whereas in New York, you can get on the train, go to Harlem, and then you're people everywhere. Like, I can go to my places that are familiar to me, like the Studio Museum, or go to my cafe latte and sit and you have your spaces where you can kind of go, here, I got to get in my car, drive 33 minutes to one place, 30 minutes to another place. It's just, you have to, it's just different. And then it has a slower pace. Like, you can feel the energy here. It's very slow. So sometimes when you feel like you need a little momentum and a little pick-me-up, you have to literally go out and find it in Atlanta. And I'm so happy to be going to New York next week, because I do feel like I just need I need a jolt of energy. Right. So I'm happy to be going home for a week. But at the same time, I'm still very grateful to Atlanta, because it's okay. It's okay that I'm uncomfortable for this season or not as comfortable as I want to be, because I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about what's important. I'm refining what my goals look like. And it's okay to be in a space of like wanting something, but you only know what you want when you're in a position or in a space where it's not what you want. Right? So I'm learning that. I'm learning, I'd never lived in a house before, for example, until I moved to Atlanta. So I'm like, I think I like house living. It was a little weird at first, but I think I want a house. And I think if I move back to New York, I want to live upstate because I want to have land and that kind of thing.
Right.
I wouldn't have known all those things had I not gotten out of my comfort zone, right?
Right.
So I just encourage people to just make a plan, but then let go of that plan, because a lot of what you're going to have to do is operate in faith, and you need to trust your wisdom. Like you're going to have to. So get a meditation practice. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that. I was like, your meditation practice is clearly serving you. And just to be clear, the company that you just created is called, did you say it was the Black Print Institute? Yes, it's called the Black Print Institute, and it's just a public health research and evaluation consulting firm. Just wanted to make this. But you can find, but people can find me on ChristaDavid.com. I mean, that's where I want people to find me. Awesome. This was so wonderful, Christa, because I'm like I said, and I'll say it again, you've blessed us several times over. I did not know what to, and I didn't have any expectation other than I knew that you were going to be great because that's just who you are. But in terms of the things that you have been able to create for yourself post leaving or quitting your job, which is funny because when I was writing it, I was like, do I want to say left her job or quit her job? I don't know which one is one more empowering than the other. It doesn't even matter. But since quitting your job, you have really like taking the bull by the horns, if you will, or really had that leap of faith, and things are manifesting so beautifully. And I'm super, super happy for you and proud of you, and you continue to be a blessing to those that you come in contact with, I am sure, and to all of the listeners that are listening. I know that you have, if they hadn't had a pen and paper out at the start of this, I'm sure at some point or another they grab one, or they're going to be like, I got to go back and listen to that again because I'm going to have to write that down. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that again. I almost was thinking there could be a whole consulting business to start on the side, not sure to give you more stuff, but I was visioning these little kind of workshops of how'd you do it? Because I want to do this in my artwork, and what are the things the kind of the nuggets that people don't really teach us, right, or tell you. You have to kind of live and go through it. But if you get the support of someone like you who've experienced, and you get to hear those stories, it's really, really supportive and helpful. So whether you're an artist or not, you could have a business that's not an art business, but I'm already ready to take some of these things for the business that I'm working on. So it was beautiful. You were about to say something. You find me on Instagram. My DMs are open. I think, and I answer a lot of questions that way, but I'm also looking forward to answering questions in other ways, whether it's my newsletter or whatever. So people can feel free to ask me anything. You just slide in my DMs, send me the question, and then I will answer it either in an Instagram story when I'm back online in February, or in a newsletter, or on my blog, or something like that. But I'm happy to share. So, people can feel free to reach out. Right. And who knows, maybe post Thailand when you come back, there could be the possibility of Christa David's podcast. I know. I need a podcast. In that way. Maybe I'll do the podcast in Thailand and take my mic with me and be like, all right, we're going to do podcasts every day because we have nothing to do except walk around Thailand. Right. You may do a video blog, because you actually did that when you were in you did something like that when you went to Cuba, right? I think, or no? No, I did it in Bali. In Bali. Okay, that's right. It was in Bali. That's right. Yep. So,
So this was wonderful. I don't know if you've already shared so much, but I don't know if there was any other like burning desires, any last thing that was on your mind or heart to share with a budding entrepreneur or someone who's just starting out. If there is any last words of encouragement that you want to share, parting words. You've shared so much already, but. Mm-hmm.
I think the last thing that I would say, because it can get really overwhelming when you're thinking about starting something, a business or whatever, is you want to find your model and just stick to that. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of content online. There's a lot of people you can learn from, a lot of people telling you, do this, do that, go A, go B, go C. You trying to listen to all of those voices is going to cause you pain. So pick one with whom your values align and go and then use that as a model, because if not, you will be all over the place trying to do all the things. And the only thing you really need, honestly, is just to learn how to trust your own internal wisdom. But we're human, so I know we like to have examples. So just pick one, maybe two examples and be like, okay, I'm trying to build this kind of business. I like what she's saying. I like what he's saying. Let me only hone in on that. Because if I'm trying to listen to all the gurus and all the people and listen to all the podcasts and read all the books, you're going to get confused and you're going to have analysis paralysis. So just simplify how you're getting content and, like, simplify your counsel and, like, pare it down to just a couple, and then just take it day by day and step by step. And the last thing is what I know for sure is that we are all out here. We, like, people who are living these creative entrepreneurial lives. Everybody is making it up. So nobody knows more than the other person. So you can take comfort in that. Like, I don't know what I'm doing most days, and that's okay. It's just like, well, what can I do today to get me closer to my goal? And that is it. Nobody really knows what they're doing, so you don't have to be afraid to try. And that's it.
I love that. Well, listen, on that note, drop mic. I just say drop. Boom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being a yes. I appreciate you being on. Thank you. And that concludes Just Blooming Conversations with Christa. So thank you all for tuning in.